My name is Nevena Kostić, and I am head of programs in Women on Boards Adria. Welcome to the first WOBA talk. It is an immense pleasure to start this journey and see great interest among the professional community in Adria region. We have started WOBA as a regional non-for-profit initiative with the purpose to increase gender diversity in executive and non-executive leadership. It is an umbrella association for the promotion of gender equality at the decision-making level. Today, we are starting what will hopefully become tradition, place and a time where once a month we will have the opportunity to hear from women who have walked the path of professional accomplishment and can share their wisdom and lessons learned. Today with us are amazing women, and one of the first supporters of WOBA, Zeynep Yalin Uzun. Hello, Zeynep, Executive Board of European Women on Boards, Executive Board Member of European Women on Boards, and a member of WOBA Advisory Board. Zeynep has a diverse corporate career with 15 years of which in C-level roles and in geographies ranging from Americas to Europe to Asia. Sanela Pašić, member of Supervisory Boards and WOBA Ambassador and lead for Bosnia and Herzegovina. Sanela is a distinguished banking executive, university professor, and co-founder of the Women's Mentoring Network in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Hello, Sanela, welcome today.
Hello, thank you.
Lovely to see you. And Biljana Braithwaite, CEO of Sustineri Partners and chair of Women on Boards Adria. Biljana has extensive experience in advising governments, businesses, and international organizations on ESG, rule of law, social and gender issues. She has leading role in establishing ESG Summit Adria, as well as the WOBA initiative. Most importantly, after all this, they are all generously devoting their time and knowledge to empowering women in the region. Thank you all for being here today. Before I hand over to Biljana, who will be moderating today's session, I invite you to, if you are in the position to do so, turn on your camera so we can all see each other and really meet each other, although virtually, but still more closely. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Biljana, please, the floor is yours.
Nevena, thank you. Sanela, Zeynep, it's an honor to moderate this online talk with the two of you. Before we start, though, I'd like to just say what I think is obvious to all of us. All these things and initiatives often involve work of many supporters and volunteers that don't get a chance to speak in front of cameras. So I'd like to thank the team that has been supporting us today and is supporting WOBA longer term. It is a team of amazing young women. Tamara, Amina, Zorana, so huge thanks for what you've done for today and what you've done for WOBA generally. Zeynep, I'll start with you, if I may. You were in Belgrade with us in October when we had in-person event that went very successfully, and your talk was hugely inspiring. And we really are genuinely honored to have partnered with European Women on Boards. We at WOBA look forward to learning and working with you and your colleagues. European Women on Boards was instrumental in driving the directive on women on boards through the parliament, and now you're working on the implementation, and it's a public-private partnership. As we embark on this journey in the region of on the one side, advocating changes in legislation, and on the other side, engaging with companies to change practices. Could you tell us how WOBA found it? What was your experience, and what will you be able to help us with in the region?
Thank you so much, Biljana. So first of all, it's a great honor to be here at this first event of WOBA. I'm very happy to be supporting such an important mission together with you and the wonderful team at WOBA. So as you rightly said, EVO plays a critical role in advocating and implementing EU Women on Boards Directive, which thankfully hopefully recently passed in the European Commission. With regard to EVOP, our approach actually transcends advocacy. We focus on practical execution in collaboration with businesses and policymakers, because we find this to be such a critical link in the implementation of the objective. So what does this mean? This involves intensive lobbying for policy change. We present compelling data-driven arguments for policymakers. For instance, in our most recent Gender Diversity Index, so this is a piece of research that we do every year as European Women on Boards, we found that only 35% of board members across 668 companies are women, and there are just 50 female CEOs. So this, of course, highlights the need for a much more inclusive leadership across Europe. And our collaboration with business is quite pivotal. We help businesses understand and effectively implement the directive, engaging in dialogues to comprehend their challenges and perspectives, because this is critical in the implementation, as you may imagine. The collaboration shapes policies that are not only beneficial for gender diversity, but also practical for businesses, because if it is not, then it doesn't get implemented, right? We provide tools, guidance to integrate these policies into corporate strategies, and we try to ensure that businesses are prepared and supported in their implementation efforts. So we're sort of like in a mediator role between policymaking and the corporate world. And we try to ensure that both voices are heard and considered. Our goal is actually to create a cohesive framework that promotes women's participation in decision-making. And we want to also ensure long-term sustainability and measurable impact across diverse sectors, because we want this to continue going into the future. So obviously this requires us to work on multiple fronts. We work with policy advocacy, we work with corporate engagement, and networking, knowledge sharing, so lots of different avenues of work. And you know, hopefully our joint aim, also together with WOBA and other partners, is to shape a future where gender diversity in decision making is the norm and it's not an exception.
Thanks so much, Zeynep. And times are changing. The other day, we read that Apple, the biggest company in the world, now has a 50-50 board, which is remarkable, in particular in the tech industry. So Zeynep, sorry, Sanela, we met in Sarajevo last week, and we spoke actually about some of the very issues that Zeynep has raised now, how to engage private sector, how to make a positive case for this agenda, because there is a business case to be made for financial institutions and companies to see why inclusive leadership is actually genuinely in line with their other priorities. You have lived this agenda well before it became an item on the agenda. Sanela, you have managerial, C-level, and board experience that spans not years but decades. So perhaps from your perspective, you could sort of start and tell us, you know, what do you think about, in particular, financial industry, that you have financial sector, you have particular experience in, and you know, what do you think would be the first steps and important changes we need to be focusing on?
Thank you, Biljana. It's really a pleasure to be with all of you here. Well, I would say financial sector, as any other sector in this region or anywhere in the world, would have same issues in terms of presence of female leaders within management board or supervisory boards. Of course, the level of the problems can be different. I think it is very severe in this region because we are a traditional region where it is perceived that men are better leaders. Yeah, so it may take a bit longer to break the ceiling, so to speak. I've spent 20 years being in management boards or supervisory boards of different financial institutions across the region, and while being strong believer in equal opportunities between female and men. From my own experience, I know for a fact there are no equal opportunities. Women have less opportunities and have to learn more, work more, and have more luck to obtain an opportunity. So from my own experience, I've always tried to help other women go through that path. I see that WOBA is an excellent platform to do that because it will create opportunities, it will support women in taking those opportunities, and it will equip them with what they need in terms of networking, in terms of soft skills to help them navigate and train them through the different boards. So I'm really looking forward to the activities that we plan to do. But to go back to the last part of your question, what are some most urgent measures? Clearly, legislation needs to be put intact to assure bigger opportunities because this is a traditional region. So things will not evolve out of itself, at least not for a long time. So we need to put in the framework, respecting the framework that will enforce participation of women in the boards. And then we obviously need to encourage them to do that. Yeah. And how do we encourage them? I think technical knowledge is not an issue. Women are traditionally more educated in a particular technical topics than men are, or at least as much as they are. But I personally think more. And various, statistics on degrees show that. But I think they require trainings on different soft skills, and they will help them navigate the boardrooms. They require inspiration and increase of self-confidence. And this is what we do by networking, by exposing them to other women who are successful, who would inspire them to be brave and try something, take an opportunity, and by training them in different ways. So all the things that WOBA is about, I'm actually thinking that all the things that are our plans and mission are exactly the immediate measures that need to be taken. So hopefully things work out well for perspective of women in the business sector in this region.
I think with this team of remarkable women that we gathered, they cannot not work. And I think we all also have stamina. We are not going to lose energy and lose focus and lose enthusiasm. You've said a couple of important things. I think one is that legislation is necessary, and this leads me to the conversation of quotas, famous quotas. Zeynep, and you can tell us, why they're important. And then you said something else that is, I think, important, is that we want WOBA also to have a network of women that we would have liked to have met when we were younger, because this is the point, this sort of encouragement, mutual support, inspiration, making it look possible, but also, and we'll come to that a bit later. Sanela, you're doing fantastic work with Women's Mentors Network in Bosnia already. You could tell us a bit about, what you find are strengths and weaknesses of women. But Zeynep, first, maybe legislation point and related to that, directive and quotas. Why do we need quotas? Because often you will hear the argument that meritocracy will solve it all, which, we've heard from Sanela is not the case. Why quotas? How have you seen them work? What is the EWOB's experience?
Thank you for that, Biljana. So I fully agree with Sanela's point that currently we don't have equal opportunity, and we need to provide the equal opportunity through legislation. Otherwise, things are not going to move. So at EWOB also, we share the same point of view that quotas are catalysts for change in increasing women's representation on boards. So first of all, they serve as clear, measurable benchmarks for organizations and compels the organizations to actively seek and promote qualified women into decision-making roles. And I want to double underline the qualified point, because that goes back to your point on meritocracy. Our point is not just to put anybody out there, but there are so many qualified women out there that we just want them to have an equal opportunity as their male counterparts. So this approach addresses the systemic barriers that have historically limited women's ascent to leadership positions. the presence of women in leadership roles brings diverse perspectives and inclusive decision-making, enhancing corporate performance. So there's a clear performance aspect to increasing the levels to those of equality. One thing though, I had also mentioned in our first meeting of WOBA, and I will reiterate the same point. At EVOC, we prefer to name quotas as targets for their aspirational and sustainable nature. So targets imply that there is a goal out there that extends beyond mere compliance. Quota is a slightly different concept. I think target is something that a lot of businesses really strive for. And in fact, target will reflect true inclusivity and quality of participation by a company. So this approach actually encourages organizations to integrate gender diversity into their broader business strategy and culture. So literally, along with the sales targets, profit targets, etc., inclusivity targets can be set into company strategies, and this can create a real cultural shift. So this is what we believe as European Women on Boards. And actually, history shows that this is a very, very good approach. For example, countries with binding targets have seen the women at board level multiply by 5. To nearly 40% over the few years, compared with only 18% in countries which do not have targets. So this demonstrates the effectiveness of targets in changing women's predicament in this situation and catalyzing a cultural shift. I mean, this is basically what we are trying to do to move faster than it normally would happen. So targets are a big part of that. And gender diverse boards, again, I want to underline and link to better financial performance, innovation, risk management. In fact, all of these highlight the economic value and benefit of gender diversity as well. So we believe that we need to approach companies from this perspective. Measurable targets, not quotas, and economic benefits are there for the company to explore.
Absolutely. And I guess that brings us, and Sanela, I think here you're really well placed to talk about it because you've seen it in action quite a lot. You've seen women on boards. You've seen what unique skill sets they're more likely to bring. How are they likely to affect the overall dynamic on the board? So perhaps you could, because I think that we have two pieces of evidence. One is that targets set in legislation translate into more change in practice, which is also evidence that change won't happen spontaneously. We need legislative intervention. And then we have a second piece of evidence, which is that companies that have more inclusive and diverse leaderships have ultimately better business results, in particular when it comes to sort of longer term delivery. So it seems to me, so first, what do women bring? And then second, does that mean that we should also work with the old board? Because old board needs to understand that this is not a box ticking exercise. You want new dynamic on the board. If these women are really to contribute, the rest of the board needs to want to allow them to be fully and properly integrated. So I guess this is sort of one of the questions. I know that Women on Boards UK, for example, engage a lot with sort of boards of companies at sort of board level. So of course, we will have these women who are ready and motivated, but should we also reach out to companies and offer literally to present what are the benefits? So if you could tackle both questions, that'd be fantastic.
Yes, gladly. Thank you. Let me first tackle the topic of what do women bring. So generally, I mean, I don't advocate for female leaders being better than men in business. But after 20 years of managing teams of different size, I have witnessed different set of main skills for both genders. Yeah. And I think a smart leader would always embrace those differences and make a diversified team and allocate the task according to the skills that are better in one or the other gender, generally. Having said that, what I've seen women bring generally, not only from my own personal experience, but managing teams. So from all the wonderful ladies that I had in my teams is, I think they will always have a higher level of commitment, for example, and a higher degree of honesty. No? They're less bothered by ego, and that would open them up to more constructive approach to different things. Naturally, they have more empathy usually. This is not to say men don't, but this is a characteristic that is stronger with women. And they listen better. So this makes them create a better collaborative environment or be a better mediators. And as a consequence of this, I've seen women in management positions actually stimulate organizations to have more collaborative nature of work and better spirit of the teamwork. Of course, I think women are more financially responsible, and they're more detail orientated, they're ethically more responsible. So what would this do to organizations? And I've seen it in the real life in organizations on the actual result throughout the midterm or longer term. Organizations that have women present in the boards will have better financial results. I mean, we see that from Fortune 500 companies, but I'm talking about, seeing it in front of me in different organizations. And usually organizations where women are more present in management, they would have stronger long-term sustainable goals. I've also noticed that in crisis, they adapt faster because they multitask better and their acceptance of change is different. So there are clearly a number of advantages that we can talk about whole day. But as I said in the beginning, I don't think this is something that is exclusively better than men, but it's simply a specific set of characteristics that once upon a time we were ashamed of or tried to tame them down and adjust to man environment. And today we need to be proud of them and treat them as something that is authentic to our leadership style, because this will definitely bring benefit to the organizations. Now, should we talk to the boards? I would say yes, definitely. Because you have people that are truly open to diversity in boards, and you have people that take this off as part of the quota or requirement, as you mentioned. Even I currently sit in 4 different supervisory boards in 4 different countries. And while I have a proper seat at the table with equal vote, I notice a difference from organization to organization, from country to country. There are places where I'm truly equal, and there are places where I can still notice that people, until they get to know me, question the credibility of what I do and treat the presence something as a part of the quota thing. I mean, coincidentally, I'm not in any of them based on the quota, but I mean, you have a lot of spirit of that kind in EU. Yeah. So I think it is needed. I mean, the best way to show boards that something works well if you actually have a woman in there. But obviously, if they don't, could WOBA talk to different boards and present the benefits? Definitely. And what helps in this process, of course, is being able to refer to different partners that are the public or private companies that are having good examples of women presence in the board that actually present results. And this is why we're obviously urged by you and working all together to find partners of this kind. But absolutely agree, this should be one of the activities. Try to demonstrate to boards which are not familiar with the benefits of female presence in what would actually happen to the organizations.
And this sort of links us, I think, to what, potentially is difference between diversity and inclusiveness. You have diversity when you have representation of sort of both genders or race or whatever your target might be. But that doesn't mean that the discussion will be inclusive. That doesn't mean that there is a genuine wish to allow everyone to add their perspective and then, as you say, have the benefit of heard all of them. And I agree, and I think this is potentially an offer that we can make to our corporate partners to begin with. It wouldn't take more than a visit of a couple of hours and genuinely presenting, because what we want as an organization is to explain that this is fully aligned. This is not a burden. This is absolutely fully aligned with the other, what they want to achieve as a company going forward in terms of growth, in terms of expansion, etc., or sort of with the financial institutions. Zeynep, you've now had with European Women on Boards, obviously you have board readiness trainings, you have C-level trainings, you have a number of women who've gone through those and successfully joined boards. So perhaps you can share some success stories, but also you shared with me on one occasion the experience of Women on Boards Turkey and how Women on Boards Turkey very early on approached this issue, and you were actually the beneficiary of this program. And I think just because of the ownership structure of our companies as well in the region, it is an interesting example that we might want to think about.
Okay, sure. So, Biljana, I'll start with your first question. As you might recall, as EWOB, we recently had a 10th year anniversary event where we actually tried to showcase some successful examples of companies and leaders as well that have implemented the equality, gender equality well in their organizations. So one of the examples was Unilever, and we had Alina Santos Farhat from Unilever come speak to us about how that huge company has integrated diversity and inclusion into their business strategy. And in fact, this led to significant innovation and growth. So that example was a very clear, concise one, illustrating how a diverse leadership team can bring fresh perspectives, leading to better decision-making and innovative solutions. So that was one which really stuck in my mind from that conversation, which was at the end of December. Another example that was brought forward at that time was from Engie, which is an energy company. We heard their CEO, Cedric Ostery, and he has proactively fostered gender diversity at the decision-making levels at his organization. And in fact, has voiced that this has significantly improved their business performance. So these success stories for me demonstrate that gender diversity in leadership is not just a moral imperative. It's not something we just do because it's right. I mean, obviously that is the case, but also there's a business case with this leading to tangible results. And we do need to, as WOBA, EWOB, all the organizations working in this area, we need to bring this to the attention of the businesses and companies. And one of the key lessons that we heard from these companies, if you look under the stories themselves, setting diversity targets is not enough on its own. I think you were referring to that as well earlier, creating an environment where these targets can be met, having the people there with voices at the table. That is very, very critical to the mission, because just fulfilling the targets themselves without having the inclusive approach doesn't really solve the problem of inclusivity. It's a really short-term approach to things. So, for example, companies should really work on addressing unconscious biases, which exist everywhere in organizations, providing access to resources, ensuring a supportive environment and culture for all different variants of people. And industries like renewable energy and startups, these are not traditionally associated with female leadership. So it was very refreshing actually to see an example from the energy sector. So if it can be done there, I think it can be done anywhere, right? Because these are not really necessarily traditionally female industries. So that's for your first question. Coming back to Turkey, as I told you at one occasion when we were having a conversation, our journey in Turkey started in 2012. That was some years back now. And it started with actually two women, very similar to the WOBA group, just having the initiative to really bring Women on Boards Turkey alive at that time. And the way that they designed the program was actually a cross-company mentoring program. So 40 women were selected at that time, who were at the top levels of their companies, as well as another person who could be a mentor from that company. So the 40 mentees who are the senior women, and then the mentors from those companies But then the mentees and mentors were sort of matched on a different level. So, cross company kind of approach. And then the mentoring program started. It was for the first group about 1.5 years. So, during that time, there was a lot of training. There was a lot of discussions about what it means to be on a non-executive board, which, many women at that time were not. They were in corporate roles, but they had not really experienced the non-executive director roles. And there was also a lot of networking activities. So we referred earlier to networking. Maybe we talk a little bit more about that going forward. But that was a very important part of the program. So I remember being in that first group and having a dinner with those wonderful women. And all of a sudden, us starting to talk about our challenges, trying to balance careers and families and how to take care of kids and difficulties we face at the office because we're women and we're one amongst many, many men. So all of those conversations, started building up. And now that community has increased to almost 600 women over the years, because every year there's another 40, 50 women added every, let's say, 1.5, 2 years, maybe. And that is a very active community now that actually does a lot to be visible, to place women in positions, etc. So it is a slightly different journey to EVOBS. EVOBS is more like an umbrella organization that tries to operate in several different levels. But I think the parallels that I can draw is definitely mentorship, sponsorship, as well as networking, which is the common denominator in this journey. And of course, the lobbying bits, because also Women in Boards Turkey lobbies with the government to ensure measures are taken to increase diversity. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. And if I recall correctly, some of the mentors were men, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Men and women. And this is our ambition as well, to absolutely I mean, Sanela referred to it, male leaders have many qualities, women, and many are committed, actually genuinely committed to advancing this mission. We have a number of companies in the region that are owned by men, that have women in very senior leadership positions. They probably would be very well placed to explain why is it that they've made these decisions. So that is something we can be looking to focus on.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe just to add one more point. Currently, the chairperson of the Women on Boards Turkey is a man as well. So having men in our boards, in our organizations, as sponsors, as mentors, as board members of these kind of gender equality organizations, I find that to be mission critical for sure.
Well, this is a call to action. I think we do actually have some men on the call as well, I've seen, which is brilliant. And you've made this link between sustainability agenda and so did Sanela and this agenda. And I think this is also where we could be looking for some of our men who could be mentors. Sanela, I mentioned a few minutes ago the organization that you've co-founded in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Women Mentors Network, where you work with young talent. Perhaps you could tell us a bit about that and tell us, what do you, again, we had a conversation about how one of the first presentation is about sort of what they need to know and about the challenges that they'll be facing. And perhaps you could talk a bit about that. Where do you think their strengths are? What are the things they need to be focusing on, and where WOBA can also support in the fullness of time?
Thank you, Biljana. Yes, the organization itself came from this urge to help women overcome various obstacles that they have, and they're advancing, and I'll refer to those later. But essentially what we did is we put together 50 senior female leaders from the country, from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we have paired them with 50 young women that are committed, have ambition and talent to become leaders. So we, by having one-on-one mentoring that basically goes on over a period of 6 months, with various trainings also being included, we try to elevate the skills of these young female leaders. Yeah, of course, they are very young and they're not yet targeted group, so to speak, of WOBA, but number of them may graduate eventually to becoming what is WOBA's target market. Yeah, but I found the project to be very interesting and successful because women have same obstacles everywhere. Yeah, and I think there are different ways by which we can support them to overcome them. When we speak about obstacles, I mean, throughout this project or my own experience or different women in the teams that I've led, I always come to the conclusion that obstacles are the same everywhere, and there are few. So in any country, you would have as key obstacles women not having enough opportunities, obviously. And we all mentioned that in different ways. I think in Adria region, I tried to compare some statistics. There are not too many fresh ones. And I'm glad that you, Biljana, mentioned that we should look at the research and checking the, we talked earlier about checking the actual status quo. But according to what is available, I think women are less than 50% seats in different boards in this region. I mean, there are some differences between the countries. But second obstacle is that women tend to be paid less. Yeah, statistics here are also not very fresh, but I concluded from comparing some things from the country this morning, it's not difference in pay. It's not less than 8 or 9%, at least. And traditionally, women are questioned for their credibility and second guessed for their performance. Is generally unfairly judged. Women will anywhere tell you this, I think. I'm sure you know this. Now, but to go back to what you mentioned, the things that we're teaching them to correct, there are also things that women do themselves that slow down their advancement. Yeah. So there are habits that we have that are part of our DNA. Yeah? That basically contribute to us not taking so many opportunities. And I think these are the things that we need to work on. I'll give you an example. Women traditionally have lack of self-confidence or belief in their own skills. I have never offered a job to a woman in the past 20 years that she did not answer me with doubting herself. So without accept, and I used to do that in the beginning. So when you offer a job to a man, he's immediately, okay, what were you waiting for? It was about time. If you offer a job to a woman, then she's like, oh, yes, I'm very grateful, but I'm not sure if I can do this from that and that reason. So they need more self-confidence. They are not very active in seeking promotion salary increase. So I have literally never had a woman over 20 years in any of the teams asking me for salary increase, which meant that I need to listen and check and monitor myself. So women are usually sitting, working their job better than anyone else, and waiting for someone else to notice that they need a promotion, they need a salary increase. Yeah. So these are some of the habits that they have. They don't take compliments well. I mean, I'm sure you agree that women will typically, when complimented, say, well, it's not really, I'm not the only one who did this. This would not be possible without a team, without a family and stuff like that, which is completely different from men would do. And of course, what we have in ourselves, and I think is the worst possible present that we could get from our genetics, is a strong sense of guilt. And urge or pressure to be perfect in all our roles or to fulfill our primary roles or family roles before we expose ourselves to some career. So these are all the things that are basically within ourselves. They're not external obstacles. Yeah. And what we do as part of this mentoring network is we try to mitigate these feelings or habits with female leaders, so they would slow themselves down less, to be braver, to be more self-confident, to be more pushy. Yeah, and I think it's working. It's a stage or one process that targets group of these women, but I think it's genuinely required everywhere. I think all of us need a push of this, and if we're given examples of this, I share experiences, as Zeynep mentioned, on different obstacles. If we're inspired by other women that how to overcome these things that are in our heads and externally as obstacles. I think this gives us drive and strength to move faster. So WOBA can help this in networking and the exchange of experiences in webinars like this. I think we will always see in each other a glimpse of inspiration or a strength or something, that a concern that we all share that would move us to overcome it. That we say, okay, we're not alone. I mean, it's the same everywhere, yeah. And there are ways to deal with this. Yeah? So I think talking and having a community and support, a female support, is very important, because I think if you ask women across this region or anywhere else, they will tell you that women are frequently more unsupportive to their promotions than men are. Yeah. So I think the solidarity between women needs to be strengthened through mentoring, through networking, through actual genuine decisions on promotion of women by women in the organization. And I think WOBA, through the concept of its work and the way that it's being set up, can significantly help this process and exchange of this information, and therefore create motivation for young women.
I think this is sort of hugely insightful, and I think resonates, I think, with all of us. It's this funny thing where I think sometimes our greatest strengths are also our greatest weaknesses. You know, this is also the thing that pushes us to be so thorough, to be so well prepared, to perform the best possible, that we always, you know, as English would say, sometimes make the best enemy of the good. We want to cover all grounds and all angles before we push ourselves forward. Truth is, when you come to more senior positions, you have to be able to operate sometimes in the green zone, sometimes in the zone out of your zone of comfort. And I think this is where actually other women can help, because they can relate. Because most of the men will think that good is absolutely good enough. Good is more than good enough. And off they go, and they're ready for the board, and they're ready for all these things. They haven't necessarily thought about details of any of this. They feel ready. So I think you're absolutely right. It's about, you know, also knowing when to stop with us being over diligent and actually say, you know what, it's actually good enough. And off we go. And only someone who has vast experience, like the two of you, can actually share. So that is fantastic. I think because we also wanted to take some questions. Sanela, I'll ask you one last question, then I'll go to Zeynep, and then we'll go to our messages. I mean, both of you, I had a huge fortune and the whole team to meet as we were sort of setting up WOBA, and all of us are spending quite a lot of time and sort of donating a lot of time. Both of you, I mean, you, Sanela, we've heard about work that you're doing in Bosnia. What motivates you? I just wanted to get a bit sort of personal. What motivates you? What drives you? You know, why are you so committed to this cause? Because you clearly are, and I've heard from many young women in Bosnia that you are that woman that they want to meet and they want to be mentored by.
Well, thank you for that. I mentioned earlier that I've spent 20 years being in different management boards and supervisory boards, yeah, and that in theory would mean that I have succeeded in achieving what we strive to help the women to achieve. But in practice, it wasn't easy. I had obstacles like everyone else, and I had to put enormous amount of effort into moving up along this ladder, yeah. And I also had to make a lot of sacrifices along the way. Now, when I'm on this side, or significantly down the road, so to put it that way, I realize now there are different ways to do it, yeah. So I feel compelled or urged to help other fellow female leaders to do the same thing and do it better and do it faster. Yeah. I've tried throughout my career, of course, to exercise this logic of equal opportunities concretely. So if I'm leading a team, then I have to give a same salary and same position to a woman, which I did. Yeah. But I think there are ways to expand this and make a bigger impact. So my own experience, I would say, is the biggest motivation. Yeah. I also strongly believe that one of large roles in our life is to give to other people, give through different knowledge and different experience. And I practice it in another area of my life. I always, for all the ladies that I have in the project or my colleagues that are working with me, whenever I do something for them or they think I've done, I ask only one thing in return, is that they remember this at a certain point in their life or their career, they take the time and give and hand over the same thing, experience or advice to another woman. Yeah. So I think it's very important that we will strengthen our position only if we help each other. Yeah. And I feel obliged to return what I was given by other women. They were my mentors. So I would say this is the biggest motivation, and it takes time, takes energy. But when I look back and I see women that were part of my teams have graduated to different boards and doing great jobs, or to my students or ladies from the this female network that we're currently having, then of course satisfaction is really, really big. Then you've seen so many talented, bright women that were freed of the obstacles and difficulties, and it moved along and made a great things. So I would say this is, yeah.
And I'm sure you'll do exactly the same with us in WOBA. I had an interesting conversation with the sort of very impressive woman who is Swiss, and again sort of very, very keen on her agenda. And she gave me one interesting example, and I thought, yeah, I should think of this. She said, when I'm invited to speak at a conference and can't go, I will make sure that I send organizers 3 names of women who are equally, if not better, placed to speak on the topic. So to sort of make sure that she gives platform to one of them. It's sometimes actually small things, but things that you are sort of mindful of. And I mean, we look forward to actually hearing more from you, because I think that would be something that we would want all our ambassadors, and you're also lead of our program for Bosnia, but sort of all of our ambassadors to sort of think about, and we could have almost a little booklet of simple things you could do that actually could be a boost. That could be a boost. Zeynep, the same question. I know, I mean, we've come to you because we've set up a partnership with European Women on Boards, and then we said we would be honored and delighted to have on our advisory board someone from European Women on Boards, and we are not going to impose on their time very much. We are going to make sure that we speak to them as little as possible, because we know how busy you are. We've taken up so much of your time already, and this is only Women on Boards Adria, and you're working with European Women on Boards, and goodness knows what else you're doing in Turkey. So what drives you? What made you dedicate yourself to this agenda so generously?
Thank you, Biljana. So first of all, I'm super happy to be here. I'm part of this team, and thank you for the invitation to join Women on Boards Adria. So maybe just before I answer your question, something interesting I noted, as Sanela was describing all the mental barriers and obstacles we put for ourselves, I was kind of smiling to myself because I remember early on in my career, I had all of that she was describing. And it took me years and years to unlearn all of those and to come to a point where I actually feel quite comfortable in my skin now, going into a boardroom that's full of men. I can be myself, I can present myself, I can ask for what's rightfully mine, but it took me a journey. So I just wanted to say this for all those women out there who may be sometimes struggling with these issues. It can change, and it's just a matter of working on yourself to try to do things a little bit differently. So coming to your question, where does my passion come from? So a slightly different story, very similar in some ways to many of us, that I grew up in a business world in a country which is fairly patriarchal, which is Turkey, within boardrooms at a very young age that were all male. I was usually the only female in the room. When I was a director, that was the case. When I was a VP, that was the case. When I was global VP, it was the case. So I sort of been the only woman in the room for a long time. And at that time in the business world, this was some years ago, I had no female role models around me. And this was a big, big issue for me because, you know, as I was growing in my career, I was also facing responsibilities at home. I had my 2 kids, I have 2 daughters. I was struggling to balance being a mother, being a wife, being a leader, a female leader, and working. So all of that was kind of coming as a kind of shock to my system in a way. And I had nobody to consult all of this with. And I did have one episode where there was one very senior woman in my organization at that time. And somebody introduced me to her because they realized, you know, I was really struggling and thought that she could be of help. And her response to me was, I'm sorry, I cannot see you because I'm very busy. And having my only hope, you know, in that one person crushed, made me swear that day that I will do everything in my power going forward to help other women. Because for me, that was not an okay answer. I didn't have any other alternatives, but that's what she chose. So decided to choose differently throughout my life and my career. And since then, I've mentored maybe hundreds of women, also men. I'm not sort of against mentoring men. If they come and ask me, I will also try to help them out. But more importantly, now I work at a greater scale with European Women on Boards, Women on Boards Turkey. I'm also volunteering for them. And of course, Women on Boards Adria. So pretty much really working with women's circles and women's networking organizations to try to make an impactful change. And of course, I do have one small ulterior motive. I have 2 daughters, one of whom wants to go into the business world. And in the days when she is going into the business world and when the younger women here in this audience are going into the business world and coming to senior positions, I really want there to be a different business world, you know, where we are not talking about equality, inclusivity, gender diversity anymore, where all of those are kind of archaic topics that somebody used to talk about some years ago. And there is a true inclusivity and equality. That's kind of my ambition and the drive for my passion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, this is, and you know, you've again highlighted something that is sort of very important. We won't find that all accomplished senior women are equally committed, and that is fine. We will be working with those who are. They will hopefully come to support WOBA, and so as will those men. And this is what we want to look for. I'm not a great timekeeper. My team knows that already. We were meant to wrap up 10 minutes ago and give Nevena a chance to speak. We got one excellent question on the age and right age for the board that we won't take, but Elena, I will email you about it, and there will be another webinar in a month. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you both for setting out time to be with us today. But thank you also for everything you've done in the past months, and very much looking forward to everything we can accomplish with WOBA. And now we'll ask Nevena to take over.
Thank you all so much. Personally, I will be reflecting on this conversation in the days to come because for a first WOBA talk, we kind of wrapped up with beginning because we need to change environment, we need to change ourselves. So hopefully this will be part of the WOBA, will become part of the change and the facilitation of the networking. Before we wrap up today, I just wanted to introduce to you one of our WOBA ambassadors and a lead for North Macedonia, Tanja Mihajlovska-Dimitrievska. Tanja is director of audit, and with her enthusiasm and dedication, we are together moving things very much forward in North Macedonia. Tanja, thank you for being with us today and recognizing WOBA as a platform to tackling this issue in North Macedonia. If I would love to give you just 2 or 3 minutes to tell us about your plans, and we'll have you, of course, again on a WOBA Talk very, very soon.
Thank you, Nevena. So thanks everyone for joining this first talk of WOBA. So December was quite busy month for WOBA, introducing on Macedonian market. I had a lot of conversations with the chambers, with the government, with a lot of corporates, and we are in process of finalizing some contracts with the corporate founding partners, and also working on some membership, some corporation agreements, and also partnership agreements with a lot of chambers and also different institutions. So watch the space. That will be everything announced on our social media. Also, we are working with the ambassadors for North Macedonia, and they will be also very soon announced. I would like to use this opportunity to announce our first in-person launching event, which will happen in Macedonia in March. And we are working around the dates. Probably it will be around end of March, 22nd of March, but we'll let you know. And that will be really a good opportunity to meet in person with everyone, and also to start the journey of WOBA also in Macedonia. So I'll be short, and thanks a lot for joining this first talk.
Thank you, Tanja. Just to be quick, but before we end this talk, one very important information coming from our side, and that is that WOBA Network will be officially opening WOBA membership, a place for a personal and professional development. And we do invite you to join us and to join WOBA community. That will become supportive community that fosters growth, connections, and opportunities. We will offer access to resources, mentorships, master classes, and exclusive online and in-person networking events. We are devoting our time, and please, as Tanja said, follow this space for more, for developing a dynamic platform for women to advance their careers while contributing to the broader conversation of gender equality in leadership. Please, because we don't have a lot of time, look at the details on our website and social platforms. And we'll see you soon in a month. On February 29th, we will have a next WOBA Talk, and all details will follow soon. Thank you all very, very much for this great start of hopefully traditional WOBA Talks.